Next, we're going to pin everything to everything we have just done. All right, the Compad is unbelievably complicated. I've made it that way. It doesn't have to be. I'm sure there are super easy ways of doing it, but for some reason, I feel like overcomplicating myself. And I do it on the Compad. So we're going to chalk everything out and then pin it together. This time we're going to stitch on the outermost chalk line and then flip everything inside out. Now that I got that stitched, got the center out of both sides. Then we turn this inside out, right side out. This will probably make it a little easier. This is gonna make sense in a couple of minutes. Now when we turn it this way, around, our pins should be pointing on the inside. There are days I wonder how I managed to remember to tie my shoes. And then I remember I don't. You need to cut the 45 up to your stitch line. It's amazing how distracting this camera can be. Take something simple, well, it's not really that simple, and makes it super complicated, which is already complicated. So let's try that again. Now we're going to work our way around, put a couple of pins in each edge. Like I said, I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but this is just how I do it. So I have a problem with unfinished edges, even if they're inside a pocket. There we go. Now it looks like a Compad window. There we go. Now we stitch all the way around very close to the top. It's our standard top stitching. Nice and snug. And we just stitch once all the way around. You hold the fabric nice and taut. Pull the pins as you go. Now at this point we're going to treat it like a normal pocket. We're going to mark everything out and fold and pin. First thing we do is take the sleeve, fold it in half, and measure down 6.5 inches. 6.5 inches is where this one, the tool pocket goes. Tool pocket is roughly also 6.5. So measure down 6.5, put a mark at the middle. We'll space that one out too. This one is 5 1/4. We'll go 5.5. So we have 4 inches. We're gonna put an inch here and then 5.5 here. Open it back up and we start pinning everything. I've got marks at the middle. I folded everything in half, put a little mark on it. So that sleeve gets, or that pocket gets pinned down right there. This gets sewn on exactly the same as the two chest pockets. So we're gonna go all the way around, reinforce at the top, all the way around, reinforce at the top, after everything is pinned down. And this is gonna go right there. Again, I got marks dead center of everything, just so it'll make lining everything up a bit easier. And again, this is sewn just like this one. All the way around, reinforce, all the way around, reinforce. So let's pin everything and then we'll get to sewing. Yeah, no, this is where black fabric on black fabric is hard to see. But since it is so hard to see, subtle little mistakes are going to be easily overlooked when you look at the costume as a whole. This is 6.5. We have a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top, which means dead center is 3. Right? That is also a 3 inch. Put a mark there and there. So that will center this cog, top of the shoulder, right where it's supposed to be. That sleeve's done. Let's pin the other sleeve. Again, we fold this in half. So we're doing a cog, 2 inches, 5 inches, 6.5. Let's measure the pocket with the flap in place. And that's another 7 inches. So we mark 7 inches. We open it up, we start pinning things. Start with the cog. All right, we take this, fold it in half, put a mark at the middle, fold it in half, put a mark at the middle, and line the pocket up. Now in this I tend to double check the top. I'll measure from there straight up, so just about 6-ish. That's about 5.5, so it needs to get turned that way a bit. Just a bunch of fiddly back and forths. That's 5.5, and that's 5.5. Pin that. 5.5. Let's just up a touch. It doesn't have to be perfect, because as soon as you fold it and put it in an arm, if it's off a little bit, it's not going to be noticeable. Line everything up as best we can, and then pin. Same thing over here. Pin and pin. Pin and pin. That goes nice and even. Second sleeve done. Well, second sleeve pinned. For the pants, we mark 2.5 for the edge of the belt. We'll give it an inch, so we go 3.5 and 3.5. Do a mark straight across. This is the top of the pocket. We have 1/2 inch seam allowance. 1 inch from the seam allowance gives us 1.5. And it is somewhere down here at 1.5. This is way easier to do with everything separate. One of these and one of these. And this one here. Now this is completely out of square. Doesn't really matter, because we can adjust that as we go. And again, once it's on a body, square doesn't really matter nearly as much. Now we're going to measure 1 inch down from here and mark, and 1 inch from this side and mark. Connect the dots. What am I doing? It's my first day on the job. Must be my first rodeo. You want to offset the pocket flap about the width of your double stitch. Bring this over to the line. This is really mostly important on the X-Wing one since there's another pocket right here. But for the Imperial, it's not nearly as important. These get stitched just like the arm pocket. Stitch on top, reinforce, stitch on top, reinforce. And these get stitched like every other pocket. The only thing to keep in mind when you're laying this out is that there is a left and a right side. So for this one, we want to go this way. So again, the pocket from the inside out. That is 3.5 inches. And 3.5 inches. Draw a straight line or something close to it. We went 1.5 inches from the edge and 1.5 inches from the edge. Pin the pocket. Measure 1 inch. Make a line. Offset your pocket and pin. Line up the corner. Pin the edge. Now what's left is a ton of stitching. Next week's going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be a real long sewing montage because that's all there is at this point, is just to sew. Everything is pinned, most everything is cut out and ready to go.